Welcome back to the study guide of Strange New World. So we're going to cover questions 14 and 15 today. So it starts opening from the book Society and the Individual. Rousseau is not wrong in his claim that environment or culture shapes our nature. Our backgrounds do help to form our understanding of what is and is not acceptable behavior, what our and is not acceptable behavior, what our moral priorities should be, whether we respect others people's persons and properties. That's page 34 and 39 from the book. So question 14 is, how did your childhood and education shape your values? So it shaped it in a lot of different ways. One, the family we were growing up, we were Christian, we were Reformed, kind of, we were Reconstructionists, and we were Paedo-Communionists. Then I started reading different books. The presuppositionalism gave a very high view of the Bible, not in apologetics, but in all of thinking. Is what does the Bible have to say about X, Y, Z matter? And another one was that became very formative for me, and not only just impacted my values, actually, yeah, I would say impact my values in my work ethic is that church was important. So I watched growing up, our church was 45 minutes to an hour and 15-minute drive. And it's such a big span of 45 minutes to an hour and 15 was because as we would commute every Sunday, construction would happen and new housing developments would happen. And just over time, the distance never changed, but the time, yeah, as the Northern Virginia area got more developed, coming from Western Virginia, not West Virginia, Western Virginia into Northern Virginia, it just got longer and longer and longer. And that helped shape of, oh, okay, this thing that we're doing every Sunday is important, particularly when we would occasionally go to churches that were closer to home. And I was like, well, why don't we go to this one all the time? And it's because those churches, for better or for worse, just didn't have some of the distinctives that we were looking, that my parents were looking for. Again, that reform, the reconstructionist, the Paedo communion type of stuff, that they held in very high regard. And even that impacted my work ethic as far as jobs that I've had. I started, kind of a weird thing, commuting there to Northern Virginia for work, from Front Royal to out to Leesburg to start, and the Chantilly, and then all this to the point now I've commuted 5 hours total, in one day. The train from Fredericksburg all the way, on the Capitol Hill in DC. This commute of going to church as a kid really helped enforce that if something's good, if something's right, you don't let something like distance stop you from doing it. And then there's other things that kind of came along over time and reinforce a lot of these things that got started off with. And so, question 15 then is, have your values changed over recent years? If so, why? And so, I don't want to say they've changed, but a lot of them have been refined a lot more. And you can call that changing or whatever, because the outer shell is still there. Maybe the core has changed around a little bit. But one is, I'm not a reconstructionist. I'm just not. I know a lot of the arguments for it, and over time they just stopped becoming as convincing. It felt a little bit too pessimistic for my liking. Ironically, they're very optimistic about their reconstruction efforts, but as far as what's currently exists, they were very pessimistic, and I'm just not that. And another one that is, I'm not a Paedo communion person anymore. I fell a lot more in line with traditional Westminster, or at least the Westminster understanding that's been popularized through majority Presbyterian churches. That is where I fell a lot more in line. Again, know a lot of the arguments. I just became less convinced of them as I continue to read and study up on it, and just the internal logic of what it would mean if the entire church moved away from a practice that God wanted instituted, but the entire church moved away from it for about 2,000 years. Just not ideal. Not a strong argument. That it's a very Mormonesque type of argument of, oh, the church fell away so early. It's like, really, didn't it? Or yeah. Anyway, more likely that things got added on top of behaviors that corrupted it versus a complete and total rejection of the proper behavior. But one is I became another one is I became a lot stronger precept person, a lot stronger precept. Precept was just what I was kind of born into and was raised in. My parents have a picture of my oldest sister on the lap of Van Til playing patty cake. So very strong presuppositional family. Well, I've only become stronger in that as I've done more apologetics and have more conversations. I have found, at least from my own experience, people can be, can say otherwise. I have found the presuppositionalist arguments, particularly against secular worldviews, as way more convincing, yeah, than any other arguments. I don't say this as a jerk or whatever. I've had I don't know how many hundreds of conversations. The book I read, Always Ready, by Greg Monson, which it wasn't even by him. It was written. It was compiled posthumously of a lot of his lectures that he did. I've read it when I was 17. I've read it multiple times since then. But in hundreds of apologetic encounters, formal, informal, group settings, one on ones, the arguments that Bonson laid out from a presuppositionalist mindset, just I've never had anyone even come close to refuting any of them. I mean, they can't even, in all honesty, most of them can't even start from the basic question by what standard. They instantly leap over the, yeah, they instantly leap over the process, the basic proper beliefs. Section or proper basic beliefs or whatever, and they just jump right into rationality or logic or whatever. Which is like, well, but what's the logic founded on? It's an immaterial, it's abstract, immaterial thing, and yet you're basing your entire worldview upon something that you can't test or prove. Anyway, and I became a lot stronger in Westminster, a lot stronger in it. I'm fully convinced that it is the best confession out there. I haven't done comparatives back and forth, but just from what I've seen of how the practices of congregations that use Westminster versus congregations that don't, the overall health of the individuals in that church seem to be better. So again, that's how my views have changed over recent years and some of the rationale why.